Hey Slayers, my name is Rolia, and today I wanted to bring you a video discussing the Chainblade's meta for patch 1.2.0. There have been multiple changes to weapon UEs and a specific bug fix that promotes an entirely new playstyle for the Chainblades. So let's get into it. Before I start with the patch changes, I wanted to share a recent discovery about the Chainblades. It was found by Frugal that the Swinging Blades combo actually does 12 total hits instead of 11 total hits. The additional hit is during the secondary hits of the Swinging Blades combo, so that part of the combo actually does 7 total hits instead of 6. Bringing the base damage of this attack to 870 instead of 815 that we all thought it was before. This means Chainblades have been performing better than intended for quite some time, since June of 2019 as far as we can tell. It has been confirmed that this is a bug and will be changed at a later date. So be on the lookout for that change soon. Now let's discuss the weapon UE changes. First up is the Hellion UE nerfs. The patch notes say it was nerfed to 225 damage and requires 11 hits to trigger the proc. But what if I told you if the damage proc of Hellion actually wasn't changed though? Well, it's true. The proc still does 250 damage, and with that, this weapon still reigns supreme even at 11 hits instead of 10. Mind you, it would still be one of the best, if not the best, Chainblade to even use, if it was correctly nerfed. But as of right now, this weapon still is amazing, and will still be the staple meta weapon for the Chainblades. Let's discuss the math behind the changes though, as if it were had to have been actually nerfed. Before this patch, you could say it gave Chainblades an extra 25 damage per hit on its attacks, since 250 divided by 10 is 25. Now with that same logic, you can say it gives a little over 20 damage per hit on its attacks, so effectively under a 20% nerf to the UE. This does not mean Chainblades were nerfed by 20% though, far from it. Since the Swinging Blades combo is the best combo to be using for Chainblades, I'll be discussing the DPS difference between the changes for only that combo. In the last patch, Swinging Blades' total base damage, accounting for Hellion proc, was 1,170 base damage. With the stated change, it would turn into 1,115 base damage. This means it was an effective overall nerf by about 4.7%. It's a very small nerf overall, and no one should be worried that this weapon is dead now. Whether or not that is a good or a bad thing is subjective, I'm just stating the facts. Next up, we have the new Charrogg UE. After spending a certain amount of stamina, which is 200 for the Chainblades, the next attack emits a cone of flame that deals 200 damage to each unique target, meaning any parts or other behemoths at max rank. Stamina spent refers to any sort of stamina usage that you can do, such as sprinting, dashing, or stamina spent in any and all Chainblade stamina using attacks, such as blade spin or swinging blades. This also means stamina used from Skullforge works as well. To be honest though, this UE is pretty bad in its current form. The amount of stamina required to build up the proc is too high to be considered more DPS than Hellion. It's just tuned too low to be really that competitive. You are required to invest into stamina management to make the UE worth using. On top of that, we are stuck with having to use Aether Hunter 3, which is a weak DPS perk. If you do decide to build around it though, I highly suggest staying away from Skullforge, as the perk eco of the build just takes too big of a hit to be considered worth using. I suggest just simply using Conditioning 3 as your only source of added stamina management, as that should be enough to make use of the UE. An interesting bug about this weapon though is for some reason it tracks stamina consumption of blade spin, and will proc its own animation of the UE after a certain amount of stamina is used with only blade spin. This extra arming of the UE is just animation only, and does not actually deal any damage. Now for the juicy part of this video, the Boreus UE change. This weapon proc now deals up to 60 base damage per sprite, up to 4 sprites. Using a special now generates 3 sprites instead of 2, and are all expended on the next hit you deal. This means now you deal an extra 180 base damage that scales the damage modifiers on each of your special usages. Now why is this exciting? With this patch, Momentum Blaze is fixed to now gain the weapon's proc on each extra free special you gain from using the mod. This change blows Serrated Blades out of the water in terms of damage gain while using this weapon, and also means force stacking special stacks is absolutely the best way to deal DPS compared to spamming Swinging Blades, bringing an all-new playstyle while using this Chainblade. This change makes this weapon very competitive to the Hellion weapon, even in Hellion's currently bugged form. Since Reaper Stance is the only special on Chainblades worth using, I will discuss the math behind this UE while using Reaper Stance. In total, the amount of damage you deal to get up to and then using a fully stacked Reaper Stance is 4,500 base damage. With the Boreus UE proc, you now deal up to 6,480 base damage, an overall 44% damage increase to Reaper Stance. This is an insane amount of damage that can quickly be done over and over and over while in a fight, as you can gain a stack of Reaper Stance every second or faster with attack speed. This brings the skill ceiling of Chainblades to a new level, as you have to now be wary of using too many Reaper Stances because you won't be having as many specials to dodge with anymore, forcing you to have to dash instead to iframe attacks. This is fine for the most part though, since you tend to generate a lot of stamina during your forced stacking phase, which gives you multiple dashes to use for dodging. Let's go over how you now play with this weapon. Like I said before, the goal is to just dish out as many special usages as possible, so this requires a mod Momentum Blades, which is a trial mod you can buy from the trial store. To deal the most DPS possible, it's important you are not capping out on special points, as you are losing DPS by doing so. I recommend usually saving at least 1 point for dodging, as you are not losing DPS by not expending them all the time. Only if you were to cap out would you be losing DPS. This only applies if the behemoth is not staggered though. If it is, go ahead and spend them all. Jurassic Lantern will be the lantern of choice, as you generate a very high amount of extra damage from the tap ability of the lantern if properly used. You can use it during your 10 stack Reaper stance, or during the build-up of your Reaper stance stacks, or both. If you have enough special points, you have enough time to pop a lantern, generate 4 stacks, and then use this 10 stacked Reaper stance all in the duration of the lantern, bringing you the highest damage gain potential the tap has to offer. It's very much worth holding the tap for any of those 3 damage phases. When using a special, make sure you expend the sprites before you're doing another, as you can't go above 4 sprites and lose potential damage. During the downtime of your special points, just go ahead and spam Swinging Blades, as it's still our best DPS combo to use. I do not recommend using Energize with this build, because it's already very fast to generate special points without it. You generate meter through damage, and so using damage perks is still the best way to build meter, and on top of that it buffs our Reaper Stance and Swinging Blades, compared to Energize only buffing the meter gain, which overall isn't worth it compared to just buffing our overall damage. This weapon is a ton of fun to use, and very competitive to Hellion to boot, so I hope you guys enjoy it. The rest of the changes aren't as exciting or meta breaking, so I'll quickly go over each of the other weapon changes. Stormclaw UE now gives a 3-second buff for Chainblades after you dodge through a behemoth attack that increases our meter generation by 100%. This weapon is still not that great due to the effect just not being relevant for Chainblades, as our meter gain is already very strong without this buff, so it's just overkill once it's procced. Koshai weapons now arm after 4 seconds instead of 6, and now deal 50% bonus damage on your next 6 hits instead of 25%. It still sucks, as the damage gain is far too low and the arming time is far too long to be of any real use. Honestly, this weapon just needs a rework because it will never be a competitive option for Chainblades without it being tuned much higher. Riftstalker UE now gives us 36% increased damage instead of 40% when at max stacks. This doesn't kill the weapon by any means, but it's now just slightly less powerful. It's still our 3rd best Chainblade option compared to any of the others. Embermane weapon now takes 9 hits to proc its effect down from 10. This weapon still only deals part damage, and because of that, this weapon is still garbage, unless your only goal is just to break as many parts as possible. It will still be of no use on the meta. Shrike weapon now deals core damage per stack of its UE in addition to part damage. Core damage means real behemoth HP damage. While it says it deals 100 base damage per stack, it actually only deals 50 base damage per stack, as it is bugged at this moment. It's an interesting UE for Chainblades because we can very quickly stack its damage and could potentially be abusable with just dash spamming if it were to be tuned any higher. At this moment, it's still not a meta choice, but a good option for early game now compared to other weapons. Last but not least, the Nayzaga weapons. The patch note states it triggers lifesteal on broken parts, however, that is not true, and you can actually lifesteal on any core damage you deal, not just to broken parts. This means you can actually lifesteal damage by just hitting the body of a behemoth like Quillshot or Nayzaga, instead of having to break the parts to do it. While this change is significantly better than how it worked before, it still won't see any use in the meta, simply due to healing not helping you kill behemoths faster. These are the builds I'll be using for Blaze Escalation and general hunts for this patch. You'll notice I have a Hellion weapon set up for Blaze Escalation. Yes, it's still a great option, as the UE is so powerful that it overshadows the damage lost by using it against other Blaze behemoths. I do believe Boreus will still be the best option, but that doesn't mean Hellion weapon is a bad option to use should you still prefer the playstyle of Hellion. My closing thoughts are simply that Hellion and Boreus weapons are very much the meta for Chainblades right now, with Hellion just very slightly ahead, but not enough to be too noticeable. I do really suggest you try out the Boreus weapon playstyle, as it really is a ton of fun and is a lot different than the Hellion weapon one, along with being very competitive. The other weapons aren't really that much to write home about in my personal opinion. The builds and perk choices for Chainblade still basically stay the same, so don't expect too much to change on that front either. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope to make you a better blader. Bye for now.